just need you to know right off the bat, this video is for all my fellow girlies with daddy issues. If that doesn't apply to you and you feel left out, maybe you can talk about that with your dad. Maybe that could be a fun bonding experience. Wouldn't know anything about that. Sing it with me. DADDY, D issues.
Your video tipping the show. I do.
Butt lovers? I had a very tearful goodbye with my last butt. You even hear her voice for the first and last time. Shout out to Amandum for providing the voice and translating. So basically what we're doing here today is we're putting these dads on a tier list, more like tears list. Cried a lot making this. You bozos out there, send me your suggestions over on my Discord and my Instagram. We're starting off strong with Hugh motherfucking Neutron. Hugh Neutron is a great example of the stupid dad trope not getting in the way of being a decent human being, except for that one time he made that lady give birth again and again and again. Disregarding that, he and his wife Judy probably have the best morals and marriage in all of Retroville. I think Jimmy's parents really ground him, because even though his ego is too big for his own good sometimes, as you saw in my Jimmy Neutron lore video, he genuinely cares about his parents. Remember that one episode that ended with Jimmy and Hugh singing the duck song that Jimmy at first was so embarrassed of, but then he grew to love it?
Quack, 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 quack.
Quack, 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 quackity quack. Quack, 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 quack. Happy Father's Day, Dad.
Is that what they did?
Yeah.
How sweet is that? They love each other so much. I need a second. I adore Hugh's fatherly advice that doesn't always make sense. In fact, I don't think it's ever made sense, but it's clear he's trying and taking an active part in his son's life. A lot of the dads you'll see in this video, and also in life, kind of just disregard their kids. But Hugh sticks by his son's side even when his son is trying to give him the slip. Like in the episode, Wilderness. Hugh encourages Jimmy to unplug and enjoy the great outdoors. Very goofy movie, which we'll get to later. I could not include him, come on. Anyway, it doesn't go the way Hugh planned, but just the effort on top of him trying to protect these kids from a bear shows the great lengths he would go to protect his son. Normally, in the woods, I would choose the bear, but in this instance, I'm choosing Hugh Neutron. Big Daddy Hubert. Are we starting with an S tier? I love Hugh. I think he might just have to be S tier. Another amazing father figure from the show Jimmy Neutron that desperately wants to be more part of his son's life is Mr. Estes. He's not in the series as much as he should be, and the times we do see this man, oh my god, he breaks my heart. In El Magnifico, Mr. Estes pretends to be a superhero, so Sheen will want to spend more time with him and look up to him more. This man deserves the world, but all he got was trauma. He lost his wife, and during the events of Planet Sheen, I'm pretty sure he thought he lost his son. A truly tragic character, but a truly great dad. Wow, another S tier. Can we keep the good vibes going? No. Because now we have to rank Mr. Turner from The Fairly Odd Parents. The sheer premise of the show should tell you all you need to know. His parents are so goddamn neglectful and terrible that this kid needs magic to counteract it. Timmy's dad is also responsible for hiring Vicky the babysitter, the one who physically and emotionally abuses his son. In the episode where Poof was born, which we'll talk about more with the next dad, when Timmy's dad saw Poof, who he thought was a doll, he said, "It's like the child I never had," in front of his child, who he had, and also who he called the wrong name.
Tommy.
So imagine this, right? I'm done filming. I'm ready to start taking notes for my next video, which is, as you know, say it with me, the Cosmo and Wanda fucking one. And I'm watching this episode called, I think, A Father in Time.
Just Father Time.
Thank you. Father Time. And Timmy's parents are outside working out. And Timmy's like,
Man, if I didn't have all these chores, I would be outside already.
and you'd think it would be like a normal chore, like, hey, pick up your clothes from the room. No, the fucking kitchen looks like there were like animals let loose in it, and it definitely wasn't just him that made that mess. The parents were like, that's not our job, that's your job, and they just decide not to fucking help him. Ben described it best. This is some Cinderella shit. This is next level. Another thing that sucks is when you watch the show, it becomes very obvious that it doesn't want you to hate this failure of a father figure. Because even though everything he does is awful, he has some killer one-liners. His competition with his neighbor Dinkelberg, his need for a trophy to validate him, the battering ram used to forcefully enter his son's room. See, when I say it out loud, it's not actually funny, but in the show it is. Humor, however, will not save him from the fiery forever flames. This man and his wife are going to hell. Cosmo from the Fairly Odd Parents. Cosmo is the father of the greatly despised character Poof. In next week's video, I'm going to discuss Cosmo and Wanda's relationship, and you'll hear a lot more about this episode Fairly Odd Baby, but for now, I just want to discuss Cosmo's relationship with his son. Now, first things first, Cosmo does experience giving birth. He experiences a physical pain not many other fathers experience, and for that, I must give him credit. Come on, seahorse! It also goes to show just how badly Cosmo wanted this kid. In the episode 2.5 Babies, however, we see just how many times Cosmo has dropped Poof. Listen, 1 is too many, but at least 5, and one of them is off of the Grand Canyon? My guy, it's not like it'll do any physical damage to this godlike creature, but it'll definitely do emotional damage. And to my understanding, because Fairly Odd Parents didn't know what to do with Poof, they just sent him off to Spellementary School to justify him not being there all the time. And after all the trouble they went through to have this kid, because having a fairy baby was outlawed up until this point, Cosmo was the last fairy baby, like how hard can this show backpedal just to introduce other failures of new main characters? It's so wild to see just how easily Poof was disregarded after seasons and seasons and seasons of Cosmo and Wanda being really good parents to Timmy. To Timmy, they're actually closer to A tier. But to their own offspring that they just sprung off, not the worst, but certainly not the best. Second lowest tier, Shrek. To jog my memory of Shrek as a papa, I watched Shrek 3, which I watched once in theaters and never again. I remember it being the worst Shrek movie. The first thing this movie establishes is that Shrek will do many things he's uncomfortable with to make Fiona happy. After Shrek struggles to fill in for the king, Fiona also brings up the possibility of starting a family with Shrek, which right off the bat, Shrek seems to be uncomfortable with. He says, right now, you're my family. And I feel like that's really spot on dialogue for him. It took him so long to open his heart up to Fiona, and she's the only person other than Donkey and Puss that he's really comfortable around. He's a loner at heart. Him and his wife in his swamp is all he wants. Granted, it took him a long time to have a change of heart about finding love. For the longest time, he didn't think he'd find love, so maybe he'll 180 on this as well. I really went into this movie thinking Shrek being a dad is very out of character for him, but we continue. The frogs singing Live and Let Die at the king's funeral is so funny. Have you guys ever watched The Last Man on Earth? It reminded me of all the really inappropriate songs they'd sing at funerals. Like, there was this one guy that died in a plane crash, and at his funeral they sang I Believe I Can Fly. Oh, truthfully, I thought this was the one thing I'd give this forgettable movie credit for. You might think I'm being cruel when I call this movie forgettable, but even Shrek 4 forgot about this movie. There's a scene where Prince Charming is rallying up all the other villains, and one of the villains he recruits is Rumpelstiltskin. Rumpelstiltskin is one of the main characters of the 4th movie. Here's what Rumpelstiltskin looks like in the 4th movie, and here's what he looks like in Shrek 3. That's not the same guy. As Shrek sets out to recruit Fiona's cousin Arthur to be the new king, it's very obvious Fiona is trying to tell Shrek that she's pregnant. Shregnant, if you will. Once he finally hears her, he is not thrilled. After she says he's gonna be a dad, I was half expecting him to be like, no, I don't want to. Can you have a nabogershin? He plays it off only a little bit better than that. After that, he has a nightmare about hundreds of baby ogres, even ending with his friends transforming into these little freaks, which seems like a great omen of things to come. When he wakes up and confides in Donkey and Puss, he explains he's not worried about himself during this life-changing event. He's worried he's not gonna be a good dad. This shows a level of maturity a lot of people who willingly have kids don't have. What's more important than you wanting the kids yourself is if you're going to be good to the kids. He's not thinking of his own well-being, he's thinking about the well-being of the beings he's bringing into the earth. Huge green flag. That flag is greener than he is. Wait a second, is this movie good? And the viral TikTok audio,
Not now, kitten whiskers. Daddy will discuss it later.
is also from this movie? I love Shrek 3. Why was I slandering it for so long? This was truly the most realistic way to write him as a father. And even though in Shrek 4 he's mourning his old life a little bit, he doesn't regret his decision. He just needed a little vacay. He's laughing so much with so much love in his heart as a father, and he gets help from Donkey, who's also a wonderful father and a wonderful uncle to his kids. My heart is full. S tier actually stands for Shrek tier. Speaking of Shrek, check out me and Jack's Films collab from over a year ago. I'll never forget when I accidentally tricked him into thinking he was going to be canceled for offending ogre kind.
He's become full ogre, like eating his young kind of shit.
That's like an offensive stereotype, but yeah.
Okay. Oh, the offensive ogre stereotype.
I feel like I actually scared you there for a second.
You did. I was like, oh, did I say something I shouldn't have about the fictional creature?
Welcome to the party, Mr. Universe. Greg Universe. My first instinct is to say this guy is the best. All the duets and songs he shared with his son. I love this man and his farmer's tan. I'm going to ignore the haircut he got in future as it emotionally scars me. His fear and him navigating how to parent this half-human hybrid is totally justified. I wouldn't know where to start either. As Greg sings, I could never be ready. Greg is also the reason Rose decided to have a kid. Love Like You is Rose singing to Greg. He taught her how amazing it is to have human love and compassion, to the point where she realized she's not fully capable of experiencing this, and she wanted to create something that can, while also cleaning up the mess she made. Ultimately, having Steven was an amazing decision for the well-being of the Earth, but the well-being of the kid wasn't really a part of that decision-making process. Because Greg didn't know Rose was Pink Diamond, he didn't realize how much Steven would have to be responsible for, just sharing the same gem as her. Him not realizing what he was subjecting his kid to is obviously not great. It wasn't really an informed decision. He just wanted to go into a giant woman. In the episode 3 Gems and a Baby, we saw how Greg dealt with non-human activity from a baby Steven. Like when his gems started to glow, he panicked and was searching through parenting books for the answer. But Garnet, Pearl, and Amethyst, convinced Rose was trying to escape, kidnapped Steven. Greg caught up to the van by running in a blizzard. The end of the flashback shows that Greg and the Gems decide to parent Steven together, since they both know more about their respective species. I just wish we saw when Greg decided that the Gems would be Steven's main guardians. In the extended theme song, we see Steven singing a song to the Gems about saving the day with them, and then we see Steven moving into the beach house with them. But what happened that made Greg decide to be more hands-off during this time? Did he realize the Gems can do more to make sure that Steven doesn't get physically hurt? I wish we saw why Greg let Steven live with them. I want to know what caused that shift, because that's a big decision. In Steven Universe Future, we see more of Greg's shortcomings and his short hair. I hate it so much. As we see the consequences of him not enrolling Steven in school. Steven feels very isolated from his human peers. On top of that, apparently Greg never took Steven to see a doctor. Holy shit. This can be perceived as a huge oversight. I found this really thorough breakdown of his intentions over on Tumblr, and they really did a great job of explaining where he was at mentally, but how it's still not an excuse for how he dropped the ball. I wish the doctor thing was more of a, oh, I thought they'd take my son away for being an alien, or I thought he'd be experimented on, or his anatomy is just too different for these human tests. But Connie's mom was able to see what was wrong with Steven right away. Also, they never kept the Gems or Steven a secret at any time, so these excuses don't really make sense even if they did write them into future. If I'm letting my sentimentality and how much I love this character sway me, I'd easily put him in A. If I was being more realistic, I'd put him in B, or maybe even C. No! Not taking your kid to the doctor is kind of a big deal, dude. Steven Universe Future just has so much nuance that kind of pisses me off, especially because all that nuance leads to a murder, which is supposed to indicate a breaking point, but it was never fully resolved on the side of the main victim in that situation. They just swept Jasper under the rug, and people get so mad at me that I don't like it, but I truly don't like it. It ruins the vibe. I can't decide for Greg. I'm gonna put him in between A and B. Putting him in C would just hurt me too much, and this video's already really difficult for me, so just let me have this. Are you ever gonna do Steven Universe lore? If I think of fucking anything somebody hasn't said yet about this show, I'll make a lore light, but I feel like everything there is to say about this series has been said, and some of my hot takes that I just sprinkle throughout these ranking things, you guys don't even want to hear! So, the dad from Chicken Little. Oh boy. Buck Cluck is a big fuck from the very start. He is embarrassed by his son. And when the whole town bullies his boy, he's ashamed for himself. Not even attempting to cheer up Chicken Little after all these hazing events. He just acts like it's all his son's fault. Buck, as this kid's father, suggests that Chicken Little should play a game of hide and seek where the goal is to never be found. Instead of encouraging his kid to be confident regardless of the non-stop ostracizing, he instead decides to instill shame. Also, I thought because the dad was in the car with Chicken Little that he would be driving him to school, but instead he was just driving him to the bus stop. You're already in the car. Why not just take him to school at that point? Especially because even his bus driver hates him. This kid can't catch a fucking break. Abby, aka Ugly Duckling, has such a great dynamic with Chicken Little. Yes, it follows the whole overdone girl best friend in love with boy best friend trope, but here it actually works, okay? I'll just say it. She's 100% honest and comfortable with him, even encouraging Chicken Little to talk things out with his dad. It's not easy considering this guy keeps steamrolling him. He is walked and talked all over. The school coach calls in Cluck to rant about how his son's non-stop bullying is interrupting gym, America's favorite school subject that also encourages the social hierarchy. Speaking of, Cluck was actually the star athlete in high school. Could you imagine this guy peaking in high school? Checks out. He never grew out of this whole popularity charade, and that's very obvious in the fact that he can never back his son up ever.
Oh, Chloe. If you were here.
Yeah, Chloe, why'd you have to die and leave your kid here with this incompetent meathead you decided to procreate with? Huge L, Chloe. I'm in the mood for chicken tenders, I'll tell you what. Yeah, the whole having a dead wife thing doesn't make me empathize with him. Get a Fatherhood for Dummies book or something. So it's actually called being a great dad for dummies, so the bar is already way too high for this guy, but let me bestow some wisdom. As the primary caregiver, you're in charge of your kids. Whenever you have to make a decision about your family, keep in mind that the kids come first. Not your bitch ass, Buck. I literally wrote that Fatherhood for Dummies joke before that Baseball for Dummies book appeared on the screen. That's crazy. But yeah, Chicken Little is putting all this pressure on himself, learning how to play baseball so his dad can finally be proud of him. And it works. That's how surface level this man is. He feels on top of the world after winning the baseball game because his dad is finally proud of him. Unfortunately, this whole aliens taking over the world thing is following this poor boy wherever he goes. He has a piece of the spaceship. He has tangible proof in his hands and his little wings, but he doesn't want to show his dad out of fear that they'll lose their surface level bond. The dad has not created a safe space for his son to talk about things that make him feel unsafe or uneasy. Honestly, one of the worst things a father can do. By the end, Chicken Little finally stood up for himself, but it took another 3 times of Buck not listening and not comforting for Chicken Little to finally snap. Like, yes, Buck apologized. Too little, too late for me. He's so lucky Chicken Little is such a saint. He even has this line that's like, "That's bad parenting, and I would know." And that makes me hate him even more, because once there's self-awareness there and they're joking about it a little bit and there's like little wink winks, it's like, you should feel shame. Like, don't feel comfortable enough to say that. Buck Cluck is the worst thing about this movie, but he was a fantastic opposing force. He was the main conflict, that he just sucked so goddamn badly and didn't listen to his son for shit. If he was a good dad, none of this would have happened, actually. I also want to say that the second worst thing about this movie is everything Runt does other than when he's singing. When he's singing, it's pretty funny. But everything else, him using his paper bag to alleviate his anxiety, but then it getting stuck in his throat, I get nauseous. I hate that shit. His burps as he falls down the hill. The way he celebrates someone getting lobotomized. And him also pursuing a romantic relationship, taking advantage of said lobotomized person. Runt is Carl Weezer, but if Carl sucked ass. Richard Watterson. Much like his wife Nicole, he has some moments that make him look awful and some moments that make him shine. The intensity of this show makes it hard to rank these two, because episode to episode they can come across very differently. Something I love about these two is that for the most part, they really even each other out. The dad has more of a sense of childlike fun, and he's more carefree, a quality that actually helped them get together, because Nicole grew up as a perfectionist that was unable to relax ever. I think this balance makes them well-rounded parents, aside from the times the show makes them go absolutely ballistic for no reason. For example, in the episode The Prank, after Gumball and Darwin pushed this idiot to his breaking point, he escalated everything by chasing them around like he was going to kill them. Especially scary after that bucket of concrete fell from on top of the door and almost crushed them. This whole freaky "here's Johnny" segment ended with Gumball and Darwin covered in ketchup and Richard laughing, exclaiming he broke 5 ribs, but it was totally worth it. I would judge this moment even more harshly, but apparently he didn't realize the wet concrete would dry, so at least that was an accident. Kind of. In real life, this is a Child Protective Services level offense, but in the cartoony town of Elmore, this just brought the father and sons closer together. I can't judge his methods, it worked. In the episode The Hero, we see Richard's heartbreaking desire to be his kid's hero again. And as nasty as Gumball got in this episode, Richard never snapped at him. Gumball's nasty and mean phase withered away as he saw his dad never give up on him, saving him and his brother from this very unsafe junkyard situation. The song made me cry. The flashing back and forth between past and present made me cry. This guy just makes me so emotional. And we have to give Richard even more credit after we meet his piece of shit father, Frankie Watterson. He's a criminal and a con man. Nicole should go full fucking feral and kill him because he's a rat and she's a cat. Beat his ass, Nicole! After re-entering his son's life after 30-something years and meeting his grandchildren for the first time, he decides to scam his own family. This may be the reason pranks set off Richard so much. I mean, think about it. Saying you're going to get milk and then never coming back, that's the ultimate prank. When we see the great strides Richard has made being a stay-at-home dad for his children, being in their life more than his father ever has, and seeing the love and comfort his kids feel with him, goes to show that Richard truly is a high A-tier dad. Frankie, on the other hand, let's just say I'm catching him in a glue trap and feeding him to a fucking snake. Bill from Big City Greens, I want to watch this show so much more. I only ever watched this show for ranking things. It's so charming, but I must say I've never Googled, is it okay to put your children on a leash before watching this, because oh my god, Cricket and Tilly stress me out. I know it's a different experience when you're watching rambunctious children characters as a child, but as an anxious adult like Bill, when I saw Cricket underneath a bench stretch the gum close to his mouth, I wanted to yank that child away, so naturally, that Google search. I think most people say leashing children isn't great, but without it, how do we stop them from doing this shit? This show is very effective birth control. In the second episode of the series entitled Space Chicken, Bill sends Cricket to his room for causing chaos in the town, flinging chickens into the cafe. Cricket sneaks out of his room to do the same shit, but even worse actually, half the town is on fire, but because other kids thought it was cool, Bill was like, hey, you may not respect me or listen to me, but at least you made some friends. What? Bill is very kind and compassionate to these two, but I'm just gonna say it, maybe too much. He's an amazing person. On the people tier list, he'd go all the way to the top. But as a parent, letting your kids walk all over you is not great. Maybe he gets better throughout the series. I can't rank this accurately because I haven't seen enough episodes, but based on what I did see from the first and second episode, B is for Bill. Editing Athena here. Yeah, I just watched this clip from the movie, and dude, I feel even more strongly in my decision that he is a middle-of-the-road dad, but not for any of the reasons you guys are saying, because some of you out there are like, oh, he needs to be more encouraging of Cricket. Most of the time I would agree, like, parents encouraging their kids is good, but this kid keeps getting them in, like, serious danger. What is he supposed to do? Great job, son. Great job, son. No. Bob Belcher from Bob's Burgers. Mr. Burgers, if you will. It's no secret that I adore Bob and Linda. They're the blueprint for Ben and I, no question. Both their energies mesh really well, and they create a healthy balance for their kids. Both will be your shoulder to cry on and your biggest cheerleader, but typically, if you want a party, you go to Linda. He bonds with each of his kids. They love him. They trust him. Here's where I'm gonna get some pushback, but I gotta stay consistent. In my ranking moms tier list, I ranked Linda at A tier instead of S tier. I know. Because of this. My one huge criticism comes from the two-part special Wharf Horse. I actually loved the episode, and I get that this is for the sake of the story, but spoiler alert, the kids and Bob and Linda were held at gunpoint by Felix Fischoeder. And then they were held at gunpoint again in the movie by another fish odor. Here's where my concern comes in. After that happens once, you should run away and move somewhere safer. But it happens twice and you're still here? An ongoing struggle in Bob's Burgers is the restaurant struggling financially. So I know they don't make a lot of money. But canonically, Bob has a friend who is stupid rich that always wants to help him out. So Linda and Bob, if the show for whatever reason wanted to take those stakes seriously, should have called that friend. They should have had him on speed dial and evacuated their whole family ASAP. I almost want to forgive because every other time they're so lovely, but my rose-colored glasses aren't working. I still see the gun! And this obviously applies to Bob as well. It pains me to not put these bisexual icons at the top, because as far as slice of life day-to-day stuff goes, you can't get any better than these two. But when this show, for whatever reason, decides to put this family in dire situations, and they don't do anything, it really puts a damper on things. Bob Belcher is the highest A tier. I wish I wasn't so annoying about these two episodes, but I can't help it. Mr. Wooka. This little old man is the only reason I haven't turned into a full-blown misandrist. He's so gentle and kind, and the way he gives compliments is so respectful and sweet. Nana from Nanaland said it best. What a glorious gentleman. He calls to check in on Mona. He does everything in his power to make sure she's having a great time. He is a grand paternal figure to her, and the best one there is, quite frankly. When she's sick, he comes over to give her a puppet show. This elderly dude could have gotten sick too. He put Mona's happiness above all else. And what makes it extra special is no one expected this of him. He's not related to her in any way. He is just Nana's neighbor / boyfriend. But it just goes to show that he genuinely cares. He doesn't have to, he wants to. I love you, Mr. Wooka. You are a standard we should all strive for. Augustine and Felix from Encanto. I desperately want to see more of these two characters. I might be biased because the Encanto hype never died down for me. I genuinely love this movie so much. Within the little over an hour and a half of movie we get, these two aren't the main focus, but there's still a lot to talk about. Augustine, as Mirabelle's father, tries to relate to her. Around the exceptional, it's easy to feel unceptional. I'm just saying I get it. Me personally, that would not comfort me. Mirabelle's mother points out all the ways Mirabelle does shine, and I think her point would have been a little bit stronger if she wasn't casually performing miracles as she said this. As a couple, Augustine and Julieta are precious. He's accident prone and she can heal. It just works. Him happily looking off at Mirabelle until he glances at his wife's face and sees concern is just so silly and fun. I love that detail. They didn't have to do that, but I'm glad they did. The biggest way they failed Mirabelle specifically, within the context of this new gift celebration, was not even checking to see if she was in the picture. What a slap in the face that scene is. I respect everyone in her family a lot less after that scene, except for like the baby boy. At the same time, the way this father overlooked Luisa, and especially Isabella, was even worse. One of your kids is sobbing trying to lift up a piano and you're just watching. To be fair, after the dinner fell apart, we do see him chase after Luisa trying to check in on her. Isabella, you don't even ask to see if she's happy in this arranged marriage. We don't know what happened off screen, but Augustine, upon seeing the Bruno prophecy, says we can't tell anyone this dinner has to be perfect for Abuela. Perfect for Abuela. Mind you, this is his daughter's engagement dinner. What about Isabella? She is so overlooked. He lets us in on a bit more of his thought process later as he's telling off Abuela, saying that he was thinking of Mirabelle when he decided to hide Bruno's prophecy, because he knew Abuela would freak out at her. I think he's an A-tier dad to Mirabelle, but a B-tier dad to Luisa and Isabella. I'm putting him in the middle of A and B with Greg Universe. These magical children are difficult to deal with. Felix we see even less of. He's obviously an amazing husband, helping his wife through her many intense emotions that torment her. We see him grabbing his kid, his reflexes are very fast when the house is falling apart at the end, but because of the iron grip Abuela has on the entire family, I'm inclined to believe he's in the exact same position Augustine is in. Speaking up against Abuela even less, although we do get a very defiant yes.
I'm doing my best. Yes.
Same placement, but a little bit higher, because I love this moment from from the opening song. And he has one of the best voices out of the entire cast. Has nothing to do with how good of a dad he is. I just love him, okay? I'm biased. I want him to be my dad so bad. Speaking of Lin-Manuel Miranda music, we have Hamilton? No, Feralton. I feel like at this point only 5% of you know this bitch, so let's address the immediate concerns. That's not a cartoon, Athena. Yeah, but I like talking about him, so I just threw him in there. Is that just you with the circle goatee? Your observational skills never cease to amaze me. Feralton is a parody I do of Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton from the musical Hamilton, but if Eliza divorced his ass, and he also occasionally stole from drive-thrus. He has canonically made a flop of an album.
You fought for my honor and lost, which was fitting. Maybe I should have taught you about shooting and not quitting. But every day when I look into Philip II's eyes, I think about yours and how they're not alive. And I cries.
And he was also on The Maury Show.
That's Mariah! Peggy! I thought you were dead! Hey, where did Peggy go? She's the same person, dumbass!
It doesn't make sense. It might not even be funny to you, but I love playing this character. While Philip II is biologically Burr's son, spoiler alert, the bond Feralton and Philip II share is undeniable. Yes, Feralton makes some pretty strange innuendos, but Feralton is too stupid to realize that's what he's doing. But unfortunately, as Philip II enters his teenage years, this is something he picked up from his father.
What's been your favorite part of the trip so far?
Definitely the Los Angeles County Museum of Art.
What was the acronym for that again?
I think it was LACMA?
LACMA balls!
Philip II, do not say that!
Anyway, why did I do this? I don't know. Get ready, I'm gonna psychoanalyze myself in a very uncomfortable way. I think I did this to show you can be a very shitty ex, but a very good co-parent. This is how low the bar was set. So Feralton may have just been my very terrible attempt to cope. I think he's a B-tier dad to Philip II, but an F-tier dad to the original Philip, showing up to his funeral with almost no remorse.
Well, clearly I was wrong about the aiming at the sky thing. On your deathbed, did you really have to say, I did exactly as you said, Pop? Really threw me under the bus there. Your mother is crying really loudly. It's making me feel really bad. I can't believe you died on us. That was such a bitch move.
Yeah, I forgot about how bad he was in that, actually. This was my attempt to show a good dad? Woof! That should tell you everything you need to know about my situation. F tier for Feralton. Dude is a walking, talking, screaming F at everything. And now here's Feralton with his reaction to his placement. Twin, where have you been? Because we have the same shirt. Look at that, I'm in F tier for fathers. F for Father of the Year, probably, right? That's the best one. And look at me, I'm next to that handsome cock. I wouldn't mind putting his McNuggets in my mouth if I wasn't boycotting. Alright, bye, Goofy. Good old Goofy. A single dad out there trying to strengthen the bond with his son, Max. Did he jump the gun with this trip? And did the principal fearmonger the crap out of him? Yes, but to be fair, you wouldn't expect the principal to say your kid is headed for the electric chair just because he danced at an assembly? What is this? Footloose? Even when Max is a mean and angsty teenager, Goofy just adores him so much. To ensure Max is having more fun, Goofy puts him in charge of the navigation, saying he can take as many stops as he wants along the way to their fishing trip. When Max's lie to change the entire route to go to LA instead of the fishing location blows up in his face, both are very mad at each other, and I wouldn't wish a mad, disappointed Goofy on my worst enemy. But it was needed. Goofy really needed to say how he felt. And even though he's just a goddamn awful driver, he ends up helping his son get on stage at the Powerline concert. Nothing is impossible when you have a dad like Goofy. God tier father, I cried like a baby during Nobody Else But You. I will find the forum to talk about this. This will be brought up in a future video. I just don't have the time right now. I see the vision and I agree. Mr. Krabs. I forgot how truly diabolical and mean this man can be. He's such a goofy guy and such a goofy show, so oftentimes it goes overlooked. But even aside from being driven by greed, he is driven by by sheer maliciousness. Mostly because of his greed, but also sometimes just for shits. I rewatched the episode where he forced SpongeBob and Patrick into painting his entire house for free, but he also throws in a threat. This is permanent paint, so if you get it on one of my hundreds of doodads and knickknacks, I will literally kill you, he says. Unethical working conditions, no compensation, and a threat of violence. Already complete instability, not a quality you'd want to have in a father or an employer. But on top of all that, the paint wasn't even permanent. SpongeBob, always so desperate to see the good in people, assumes Mr. Krabs just wanted to teach them about responsibility. But Mr. Krabs wants them to know how little he respects them. Nah, I just like to mess with ya. What a spit in the face. And then he spits everywhere else too. While gift giving isn't everything in parenting, when Mr. Krabs says he's going to give Pearl, his daughter, used, not working batteries for her birthday, you can see how much of an afterthought she is. The gift isn't for her to be happy. It just serves as a, see, I got you something, without spending a dime or even an ounce of energy. This batteries line was a throwaway joke in the episode Crabborg. Another throwaway joke from this episode is when Mr. Krabs says he loves his cash register like it was me own. To say you love an object as much as you would love your own kid, when you do have a kid, just goes to show how shallow the bond is between Pearl and Mr. Krabs. There are some episodes that show his softer side, him supporting her at the talent show. The one birthday he decided to splurge on her, but only after she begged, and he sent SpongeBob to do all the work. Regardless, there are times when he tries a bit more. Like the very beginning of the episode, The Chaperone. He seems very upset seeing Pearl heartbroken after this guy decided not to be her prom date. But his problem solving is painful. First, he offers to take Pearl to the prom himself. Then he brings up Squidward as a possibility. He tries to get any of his customers to take Pearl to the prom, and all the customers in the shot are all Fred for some reason. And then him and Pearl land on SpongeBob. These are all adult men. Before one of you try to argue that SpongeBob is somehow high school age, no, he isn't. He talks about his junior prom. He's no longer in school anymore. He failed boating school more times than I can count. He's a full-time employee and he has his own house. So as well-intentioned as SpongeBob is, and as fun as this episode is, in terms of Mr. Krabs' parenting, it's not great. SpongeBob destroys prom, leading a dance that sends many people to the hospital, and before that, Pearl had to comfort this fully grown man crying at her prom. The episode ends with Mr. Krabs greeting SpongeBob at the door with a rake, which was totally supposed to be a dad with a gun kind of moment, of him protecting his little girl. Strange. The whole dad threatening the daughter's date trope never sat right with me, but it's even worse when you're the one who set them up, dude. You forced your employee to take your daughter to prom, and then you threaten him again. Off topic for a second, but apparently the SpongeBob we've been watching this entire episode was actually SpongeBob's decoy of himself. I don't know if Sandy cloned him, they never explained this, but good for SpongeBob not going through with taking a kid to prom, I guess. Back on topic to how bad of a dad he is, one of the comments also suggested bringing up Mr. Krabs in the SpongeBob musical. Even with the very little stage time Mr. Krabs had, in the song Daddy Knows Best, his wisdom he bestows to Pearl is money matters most. All the while, Pearl begs and pleads, Daddy, do you hear me? Do you hear me? And he doesn't. He doesn't hear his daughter belting because he's too fixated on his bags of money. And this isn't even touching the fact that it's theorized that Mr. Krabs killed Pearl's mother in his Navy days, and that's why he took Pearl in. Alex Bale has a whole theory about Pearl's mom being the main ingredient in Krabby Patties. And that video changed my brain chemistry with how much it just made sense. And then I discovered in my Patrick Star Show lore that they more or less confirmed this. So if we disregard that last point, he wouldn't be the worst of the worst, but he'd still be bad. But I literally can't disregard that last point because it's so real to me. Mr. Krabs is a fucking villain, and any moment of sincerity is overshadowed by the fact that he's a fucking murderer. Horrid Henry's dad. Even though I already covered the parental abuse of Horrid Henry in my Horrid Henry Lore Light, as well as my Ranking Cartoon Moms video, I put his dad in this video so I can get on my soapbox for 2 reasons. 1, I saw this tweet a while ago claiming that he was the better parent to Horrid Henry and Peter. And quite frankly, that's a load of fucking malarkey. The mom and dad are equally terrible parents. Hell, the dad even made Peter's friends cry because they were listening to hip-hop music or something. The only reason someone would interpret his character as kinder than the mom is because, and hear me out with this take, okay? I think we as a society just expect mothers to be better. So when a mother and father are equally shitty, the mom appears worse because we expected more from her. I think a while ago I saw this TikTok of a man taking care of his baby, and someone was like, oh, it's so nice of him to babysit. And he was the father of the kid. That's not babysitting, that's parenting. We are so ready to have our pom-poms on for the bare minimum and sometimes even less than that. So you already know this piece of shit is going in F tier. But the second reason I bring this up is because I made a sequel to that Horrid Henry Lore Light video where I explore all the other shows Horrid Henry introduced me to. And it's very funny, I think you should check it out. Stan Smith. Now I will say this. I think American Dad is the best Seth MacFarlane show because of how good the songs are and how gay Roger is. But that doesn't change the fact that it's a Seth MacFarlane show. So even when you have hits like B12 and the Greek character Steliokhantos with his signature move of the Slideocopita, you're still gonna have huge misses for the sake of shock value, like the fish fucking the alien. What? It's just the nature of his work for whatever reason. So it's so difficult to rank Stan when so much changes episode to episode. One of the cool things that he has going for him is even though he's a total bootlicker, like beyond, he's a full-blown boot sucker, fucking Ronald Reagan stan, he is also hiding an alien from his high-profile job, showing that keeping his family safe means everything to him. Aww. Except for the episodes when it doesn't. Aww. Like when he pulls a fat fucking buck Cluck move in the pilot of the series when he's embarrassed to introduce his son Steve to his coworkers because Steve's a nerd. And speaking of his son Steve, this kid wants to do his mom. And I feel like his parents have to do more to deal with this, aside from just looking disappointed in him. But Stan is so conservative, I don't think he believes in therapy. I stumbled across this post from r/American Dad discussing whether or not Stan is a good dad, so exactly what we're doing here. And at first, I agreed with this comment from a fellow Athena. No, he definitely isn't a good dad, but I think he's still a hell of a lot better than Homer or Peter and far less insufferable. During early Family Guy days, Peter was fine, but now it seems like his children could all die and he could care less. With Stan, no matter how downright stubborn and self-centered he can be, you can still tell that he loves his children and sincerely wants the best. He may go about it in insane ways, but he does. Stan willingly giving up his kidney, even though he wasn't sure it would be a match for Haley, is truly one of the best moments showcasing Stan's love. So that's very sweet. And I was gonna rank him just a bit above F tier, but then I remembered the episode Mural of the Story when he cut off his daughter's face, and you know what? It's still a Seth MacFarlane show. It doesn't matter if Peter is better or worse, it's F tier. Why is this even up for debate? Gru from Despicable Me. Gru from Despicable Me is like Daddy Warbucks from Annie, but if he had real ambition and an army of the silliest, goofiest little uncles. And instead of adopting one girl, he adopted 3. He's Daddy Warbucks if he grew up. Thanks guys, I know. Gru had no intention of being a father, but he's just so naturally good at it. He dresses as a fairy princess for Agnes's birthday. He freezes the boy that broke Margot's heart. Don't remember much about the middle child if I'm being honest, but I think she loves all the weapons. Edith. Is Despicable Me 3 the movie where he ends up with the redhead? Fun fact, I cried in theaters to that movie. Gru is right up there with Shrek and Goofy. You already know. Butt lovers, I sure hope you enjoyed. This is just a temporary butt until I get the plastic ones again, but this is a pair of shorts on my butt pillow. Once I paint the plastic ones, when they finally get here, oh my god, the shipping is taking forever, I'm gonna put up a vlog on my second channel of me painting all of them. I want to do a lot of funny shit on my second channel. I want to rank all of my videos that I made before my very first lore video. Stay tuned. It's all going to be super duper fun. Next week, we're analyzing Cosmo and Wanda's relationship. Have a great one, butt lovers. Bye!